Alpine Liquid Fertilizers is your full season crop fertility specialist from start to finish. Visit alpinepfl.com for more.
Bernard Tobin here for Real Agriculture. I'm down at the Southwest Ag Conference now, catching up with Ryan Parker from Valco Consultants. Ryan, how's it going?
Good, Bernard. How are you?
I'm awesome. Hey, thanks for stopping by. We're going to talk about Ontario land prices today. Get into a little survey and some studies that you've done. Before we do that, tell us a little bit about Valco.
Yeah, so Valco is a real estate firm in London. We complete real estate appraisals on all types of properties across Ontario. Myself, I do agriculture and agribusiness properties across the province, and small farm with a family, cow calf outside of London, and that's our story.
Yeah. So let's talk about another story you've got here. You did a study. You looked at 11 counties in Ontario in 2024. Tell us about the parameters.
Yeah, so the parameters of the study is 11 counties. So Huron, Perth, Oxford, Middlesex, Elgin, Lambton, Kent, Bruce, Grey, and Wellington. And we go across those 11 counties, pick out all the land sales, all the relevant arm's length land sales that we can find. So no properties with major buildings, no properties with major livestock on them, and properties that are true farm properties, not close to cities, not going to be developed anytime soon.
One of the things you did here was you look back at 2010 compared to 2024. The numbers are striking. The average for a workable acre in Ontario in these counties, $5,800 in 2010. Yes. Things have changed.
Yeah, so the big thing in this last 15-year period, of course, land values have always increased over time unless we've had a major calamity in interest rates. But what we've really had in the last 15 years is kind of a perfect storm here in Ontario. You know, we've had probably three things that you really want to highlight, which is relatively low interest rates, you know, a couple periods of time in there where we had very high commodity prices, and we've had, you know, in relative terms to the U.S., we've had very good weather here.
Let's talk about some of the performers here. We see Perth and Oxford at the top of this list, you know, to be expected. Some interesting stories a little lower here in different parts of the province. You know, talk about what you're seeing here in Kent and Grey County, for example. I never thought that farmland would be selling for more in Grey County than it would be in Kent.
Yeah, and most people in Grey and Kent wouldn't have expected that either. It's been a bit of a surprise, but we've kind of seen it coming now over the last couple of years. We've had a lot of migration from the south to Grey County, which has really put a lot of pressure on land values in different parts of those communities. And down here in Kent, you know, very little livestock, right? And we have that in really all of the southwest part of the province here. We have a lot less livestock density here than we have in other parts, like Grey Bruce, and that's had a really big impact on diverging values in those places.
Yeah. Talk about the 24 market, just wrapping up, you're getting a few final sales in here. What do we see? A pretty level, pretty flat?
Really flat, really flat from 23 to 24, you know, as close to zero as you can really get, depending on what metric you use, but a very level market, which, you know, with interest rates increasing as much as they did in parts of 23, it would have come back a little bit to us, but really the big story has been commodity prices on a pretty hard downturn as we came into 24. So for us to be level land values, again, is probably a pretty surprise story for the strength in the land value market.
Well, look back at your study here, and you did some interesting work on yield comparisons. Basically, you know, you sort of overlaid average cash crop expectations on yield over the price of acres. What does that tell you?
Yeah, so the interesting part is we took that 5-year average yield that we can get for each county, and we layered that over that 2024 price. And the disparity in some of these counties, when we talk about, you know, that ratio between yield and value, you know, is widespread. When we have, again, if we're going to talk about counties that really are at the far ends of that spectrum, we're talking about Grey County, which has, you know, relatively lower yield compared to places like Kent, and yet we have values in Grey that are higher. And so that's a really interesting thing. It really points to a couple of things. One thing would be that livestock density we spoke about. Another thing is that migration we talked about of people heading north. And the one other thing that probably should be talked about that maybe is a reason that we do have that in parts of the north is some of this climate change stuff, where we're having some of these northern parts of the province that are maybe benefiting from some faster increasing yields.
Exactly. A lot of good genetics in the 2,700 heat unit range.
That's right.
Hey, let's talk about Ontario in the context of a bigger world. And you did some work here in comparing Western Ontario, for example, to the Corn Belt. Tell us about the story 2010 to 2024. A lot of big increases in Ontario compared to what you'd see in the Corn Belt.
That's right. So here in Ontario, we've had a 12% average increase across those 11 counties from 2010 to 24. And what does that look like to the Corn Belt? It's kind of wildly different. I mean, 5.6 or 7% in the Corn Belt that same period of time. Pretty interesting difference we've had at that tier.
Is that a livestock story as well, or what do you?
Yeah, I think there's a few things there. You know, part of it we are comparing a little apples to oranges. You know, we got 5 states to 11 counties, so that part is in there. But I think livestock's a piece of it. There's no doubt our livestock density in those 11 counties, part of those 11 counties is pretty high, probably higher than the average in the 5 states in the Corn Belt. But the other thing I think that's a really big piece is probably, you know, how much urban pressure we have, even on farmland that looks like it's totally devoid of any kind of, you know, development pressure. We still have just so many cities, towns that put pressure on a relatively small land base.
Yeah. And let's wrap up with an outlook for 2025. What are you seeing in the new year? Are we going to continue on that sort of that flat line?
I really do think we are going to. I mean, the outlook on price and on crop price and on interest rates is always a tough thing to totally bottle up. But I think by the looks of it, we're probably in for another year of fairly flat prices. You know, we do have some financial stress that's hitting some guys here with some annual reviews on the financing end of things, and especially on the crop side, where we've had a pretty tough year and a half here with markets. And so I think, you know, land value is pretty sticky on the downside. It does not go down easy. And so I would imagine we will slide sideways for another year.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, hey, some great work on the study. Thanks for sharing it with the folks here at SWAC and with Real Agriculture. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.